to our webinar. This is basically the first meeting of the 2020 term of Lead Activists. So we'll go over sort of what that means, what Youth for Education is, what NYLC is, and who we are in the coming hour. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So the NYLC is a nonprofit organization dedicated to civically engaging youth through service learning and providing platforms for future leaders to share their voice in their own communities. And the official, the official mission statement is, sorry, just a moment. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Would you like some help?
Yeah.
I have it memorized. It's to create a more just, sustainable, and peaceful world with young people, their schools, and communities through service learning.
Powerful.
All right, so we're just going to go ahead and introduce who we are. We are the Youth Advisory Council, also known as the YAC. My name is Bella. I am a 12th grader at Clarksville High School in Clarksville, Tennessee. I decided to become involved with NYLC and the YAC because I'm really passionate about service learning, and I've been volunteering ever since I was little, so really any chance to be engaged and to serve my community and communities that I'm in no way related to always just kind of makes my heart happy. Which ice cream flavor am I? I would probably say mint chocolate chip because I am kind of, unexpected. I'm a good time, and I feel like mint chocolate chip is a good time.
Okay, I'm Carmen. I'm a junior at Beacon in New York City, and I joined the Youth Advisory Council because I'd always done service learning through my education and never really been able to name it. But it's been an insanely large part of who I am and how I like to learn. And I think the most effective tool for making change, not only in my community, but all across the US and the world. So I was really excited for this opportunity to meet new people, learn more about service learning and how to implement it kind of globally. And then I think I'm chocolate ice cream. Don't know why yet. I'll get back to you.
I'm Zara. I'm a senior at Prior Lake High School in Prior Lake, Minnesota. I joined the Youth Advisory Council because a lot of issues around education equity and just around youth voice in general I've always been concerned about them, and I felt like it was a great way to make a positive impact in my community and communities, like Bella said, that I'm not in any way involved in, and still have that impact that I want to see. And for an ice cream flavor, I'd be like an orange sherbet with like chocolate, I guess. A unique combination that you don't quite expect, but it's still really good.
I'll introduce myself next. Even though I'm not part of the Youth Advisory Council, I like to feel like I am part of the Youth Advisory Council. So I'm Amy Muirs. I'm the CEO for NYLC. I've been with the organization 17 years. So about the same time, length of time as a lot of you have been alive, which I just realized. So I love the work that we do, the passion that we have around education equity as an organization and supporting young people and really taking actions on issues that are important to them. And I think maple nut is probably my ice cream flavor that I most resemble. So a little sweet and a little nutty. And my computer isn't as responsive on this PowerPoint as I would like it to be, so I apologize. There we go.
All right, so the lead activists, you can now introduce yourselves in whatever order you would like.
I guess I'll go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Sydney. I'm a junior at Clarksville High School in Tennessee. And I became interested in youth for education, or, the little branch off of NYLC, because education equity is very important to me. I think it's a very important issue to look at in today's society right now. And my ice cream flavor, well, Bella kind of stole mine, but maybe Rocky Road, because it's just so crazy and wild and fun.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I'm Sophie. I'm a junior at East Chapel Hill High School in North Carolina, and I decided to join because my high school has like really bad education equity problems. It was ranked like number 2 in the nation for achievement gap, and so I just think that that's something that like needs to be worked on and addressed in my community. And I think I'd definitely be coffee ice cream, just 'cause it's like it's mellow and I like it. It gives off good vibes. That's it.
Wonderful. I was just going to mention, so we do have at least 3 other lead activists who haven't been able to join tonight. So this is being recorded and we'll share it out for them.
So at the NYLC and by extension, the Youth Advisory Council, we have a set of norms that we like to practice, and we hope that you guys will practice these in your own communities and schools. So to stay engaged, to fully participate and give your undivided attention to your peers and your adult mentors, to listen generously and not only hear your peers, but truly listen and process and take into consideration their ideas, to speak your truth and ensure that your voice and ideas are being heard, and to experience discomfort, because once you leave that bubble of comfort that you build around yourself, that's when you really start to learn. So we have a video sort of to show you guys why we do what we do, and why Youth for Education felt necessary for us.
I'm really passionate about equality when it comes to gender.
I'm really passionate about youth in my community, especially like immigrants from other countries, because I was once an immigrant too.
I'm really passionate about policy and education and challenging the system.
Personally, I don't feel safe at school because people make racist jokes all the time and they think that's okay. And it really isn't, because I think about that the whole time I'm in class instead of thinking about what I should be learning.
The statistics show that tens of thousands of kids drop out every year, not because that they don't want to learn, it's because they don't have the resources. Factors such as race, ethnicity, gender, things they can't control, impacted the opportunities that students were given. That needs to change.
Youth, they don't speak on what they want to speak on. It's a lot of things that a lot of people want to say and do, but they feel like they can't because they have that fear in their heart that, I don't want to cross my boundaries, and society's gonna knock it down, or that's more for adults and everything.
When it comes to school districts, schools in general, they make the decisions for us. They hire the teachers for us. They think they know what's best for us, when in reality, we're the ones that are sitting in the classrooms.
When we have no choice in what they're saying that affects us, it's something that's
The system has kind of blindfolded us to the fact that we're not involved in the system that determines our future. And that kind of fires me up a little bit.
It's important for youth to speak up, and it's important for youth to advocate for what they believe in because they're experiencing it firsthand. Everyone should have the knowledge and access to resources that they need to feel empowered and really feel like they have a voice to advocate for their own needs.
Youth should always empower each other because it's important to develop and grow and like just be open or empower people to be open and experience discomfort.
I've been very fortunate to go from places of less privilege to privilege and have my eyes open to experiences and see the inequity. And if I'm doing it well.
I broke a lot of barriers within myself and other people. And while doing that, I also created a whole new set of barriers to break. And that's the beauty of learning and sharing ideas.
If you have a mindset to change things, you can persuade others.
To lead others, you must first lead yourself.
Okay, so what exactly is service learning? So service learning is definitely it's a process, not a project. And it's the way in which you can truly understand and truly learn from serving others. It's like what being a servant leader is leading with your heart rather than your ego. And the main aspect of service learning is the IPARD process, which this is a part of your application. So you guys aren't completely foreign to this idea, but the IPARD process consists of education, planning and preparation, action, reflection, and demonstration. So in the investigation stage, you can ask yourself, what is a need in my community and how can I help? For the planning and prep stage, you ask yourself what you need to reach your goal and how exactly you'll do it. The action stage is the project itself. And as you can tell, this is the smallest portion of the service learning process because most of the meat is within the beginning and the ending and not necessarily the middle. Reflection happens at each stage in the process, but the main thing is what can you do to make your process better? And then demonstration is showing others what you did, what you learned, and what you experienced during your service learning process.
Hold on, Carmen, we can't hear you.
Gotcha. Better?
Good.
Okay. So your service learning process over this 1-year term is going to be about education equity. You should already know that from the application, but in case you didn't, education equity more specifically is the idea that education should elevate all youth to the same level of knowledge and access to opportunities, and that it's more than just the equal distribution of funds and resources, but a just opportunity for all youth. Education inequity is the absence of such justice. So we try to use words like education equity rather than education inequity to sort of illuminate the possibility that we can create and sort of the future that we're striving towards rather than complaining about the current system. But education inequity indubitably exists. So we sort of have to realize where it exists, why we're in this situation. And so we made a webinar about education equity that we sent you. But if you have not watched it yet, which I highly recommend you do, that link right there goes straight to the webinar. And basically it takes you through the history of mostly race and socioeconomic status in the United States and how we got to this point of such inequity. It also sort of highlights the YAC cities. So I live in New York, Bella lives in Tennessee, and Zara's in Minnesota. And so we all have really different situations, and we're sure that you do too. So you have to make sure that you're identifying what your community needs the most and how to make your education and that of your peers as equal and fair and as good as it can be. So that's your job. Light work, it'll be easy, but we're here to help you. It'll be good.
So what is Youth for Education? What's this program that you signed up for? Hopefully you do know, but in case, just to recap, Youth for Education is a program under the NYLC dedicated to improving school climates by creating brave spaces for vulnerable discussion and turning that discussion into meaningful change through service projects utilizing positive youth-adult partnerships. And that sounds like a lot of jargon, but as you start to get into the service learning process and engaging with your community and addressing these issues, it starts to sort of resonate.
Does anyone have any questions about that language? Those are a lot of words that we've gotten really used to. So I think I take for granted that they can be kind of foreign. But if you do have any questions, feel free to speak up. For instance, youth-adult partnerships. What could those be? There's a webinar for that. We'll send you the link. This is me. Gotcha. Goals for Youth4Ed. So the goals are basically what we want to accomplish as a youth advisory council with this program, but also what we want you guys to do within your communities. So first, to introduce service learning as a tool to bring communities together. So this is for you to sort of to learn for yourself, but also to kind of discover how impactful service learning can be in every part of your life and to share that with your communities. We want to increase availability of information on education inequity. So this includes us sort of telling you what we think education inequity is, where it comes from, what we've learned, but it's also going to be a lot of you discovering how it affects you and your community and contributing what you think it is. So it's a partnership between us all. We're all learning. It's going to be really good. And then we're going to create and strengthen mutually beneficial youth-adult partnerships. So again, kind of, actually no, it's very specific terminology, but there's an even more specific methodology behind it. And we have a webinar about that. But basically, youth-adult partnerships are ways that students can take initiative and adults can support them equally in making decisions so that you have sort of what the young people want and the resources and the knowledge and experience that adults have to create a sustainable, effective, kind of new educational community. And then the last one is encouraging youth voice in school environments. So obviously, schools are kind of a top-down structure. You do what the principal and the administration and your teachers tell you to, but that really shouldn't be how it is. So your job is sort of to express what you want to change and to rally your peers to change your environment and make sure you have a voice in your education.
All right, so your responsibilities as lead activist. This was in the email, but I'm just going to go ahead and quickly go through it just to kind of stick it in your brain. So first and foremost, as a lead activist, you're going to need to form a Youth4Ed group in your community, whether that be at your school, with a youth group, just somehow get involved with Youth4Ed in your community. At the end of each quarter, which those dates were outlined in the email, you're going to be submitting a report and a reflection on your experience, what you guys did, what you guys learned didn't work, stuff like that. IPARD process, the R. Attend these monthly webinars. Just check in, tell us how it's going, stuff like that. Discuss your progress with the YAC, and you can come to us if you guys have any questions, if you run into any speed bumps, stuff like that. At the end of the 4 quarters, you're going to be creating a final presentation of your project, telling us how it went, once again, reflection and demonstration. And along the way, you're going to be forming effective youth-adult partnerships and relationships with the YAC and with the adults in your community.
So this is all sort of outlined in the Take Action Toolkit. We sent it to you. Hope you looked at it. If you haven't, that's okay. But basically it has all of the steps for your project. Does anyone have any questions about it first? No? Okay. I'll pretend like you guys actually read it. It's fine. It is really long, but there's a table of contents, very helpful. And if you have any questions about anything that's in there, feel free to email us. We're super down to talk about it. And we're really proud of this toolkit, but it might need edits and work. So if you need anything or you have any questions, comments, you're totally welcome to tell us.
So now we want to hear some response from you guys. What does education inequity and maybe education equity, how does that look in your community right now? And what are some areas that you guys are thinking about focusing on in your service projects?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
okay. I think that education inequity exists in my community pretty much from like the start of like K-12 schooling to high school. There are a lot of like track programs that are put in place that tend to separate a lot of students out, and that just inherently does it on the basis of race and socioeconomic status. And so that just kind of creates this environment that as soon as you enter high school, there's already this distinction between students' education level just inherently. And that's created a lot of discrepancy between the way students are learning between like AP and honors classes and the access to those classes, and kind of the treatment of students based on their education level within like high school.
Education inequity in my community is kind of the same as Sophie's almost. It kind of builds up from lower level learning and then the track paths that she mentioned. But also in my community, we have certain schools that most people think of as less of a school, or they think less of them, because we have schools in our community that rank really, really high as some of the great schools in the state. And then we have some that rank really, really low, like towards the bottom. And so I think it's the unevenness almost that some school in the same exact county with the same head of school board can be disregarded as something less than as the school that's, you know, like 25 minutes down the road. So I think that's kind of how it manifests itself, probably from socioeconomic statuses of people who live in the same area of that school and how people are zoned for schools in our community. So I think that kind of deals with it, a lot of disregard for other areas of our community than some that are seen as better. Yeah.
Okay, so bringing it back to the iPod process, you can go ahead and brainstorm, and then we'll talk about how can you tackle educational inequity in your community by using service learning. So if you guys did get a chance to look at the toolkit, there's examples of previous projects on page 25. Just go ahead and bookmark that page in your head. But yeah, how can you tackle the problems in your community by using service and service learning?
We can start by talking a little bit about our current projects, because we're sort of functioning as pilot lead activists in our own communities. So Bella, Zara, do you guys want to start?
Bella, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. And so this will also speak on Sydney's behalf because we go to the same school. But our Youth4Ed group is considering renovating a community center that's in between my high school and the middle school that feeds into my high school. It's been kind of looked down upon basically as long as I've been in school, because it's where the poor kids go to hang out after school while they're like waiting for a ride. So we're planning on fixing it up and holding a 3-on-3 basketball tournament for students to kind of get involved and to meet other kids in the community by bringing them all to this community center. And so what we're using, how this is relating to service learning is that it's teaching us about like sociology and the psychology of how middle schoolers and high schoolers can interact with one another, and how different students in our community can interact with one another. And also it's just teaching us how to take advantage of the space that's already there, and to use the resources that we have in order to better our community. Sydney, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think, yeah, you covered it pretty good.
So what we're doing is in Prior Lake is a little different, which is fine. Youth for Education takes form in several different ways. But what we have is sort of a larger committee of students that have agreed to sort of a set of projects that we want to work on before the end of the school year and into the summer a little bit. And those projects, we split groups of students into these sort of like smaller groups where they lead these projects. One of them is actually coming up in a few weeks. We are doing a culture night, and we have different cultures that are represented in our school. One thing we have is a flag for every single nationality of the students that are in our school, and so we called on those students to come and introduce us to their culture and sort of come and represent their history and their unique experiences in this sort of culture night. And then we're also addressing some issues about inequity during that. And then every quarter, so our school year is cut up into quarters, and every quarter we have these larger meetings where we decide on a topic. Our last topic was actually on taking action, and we discussed what that looks like, who can take action, and how we can empower ourselves to take action. And from those, we have teachers and students in those conversations discussing the topic. And from that, after the conversation, we go out and we agree to do 3 things at the end of each of those conversations, and we go out and we do those things. And then for the next quarter, when we come back, we talk about how did it look like, what should we improve on, and we do that reflection process. So those are some of the things that we're doing.
Yeah, in New York City, I think the largest education inequity problem is segregation. So I'm partnering with 2 other organizations as a lead activist because it's sort of a ginormous problem to tackle on my own. And so what we're doing is we're using policy and public action to demand that the Department of Education integrate our high schools. So recently we've done strikes in high schools, and we meet with officers from the DOE often. They're not very helpful, but basically we're trying to pressure them to change the way that school admissions works to make sure that everyone has equitable access to high school, and so that resources are distributed more fairly throughout the schools. Recently, that's taken the form of a meeting that went horribly because, actually, I don't know, I might just start ranting here, but moral of the story is that it's been sort of challenging because the powers that be are sort of uncooperative, but I'm learning a lot, and I think that we're making genuine progress, and that if you're loud enough and if you have enough students to support you, they have to listen to you. So that's been really kind of empowering to experience, and I hope that it keeps happening. Oh, and I've also been hosting some conversations about diversity, but more specifically equity at my school, which is one of the wealthiest, whitest public schools in the city. And those have been really interesting, if only because I'm hearing perspectives that I've never heard before from both the super privileged and the underprivileged sides of Beacon, which has been interesting. And I plan to reflect by writing some blogs about them.
So I'm just going to say a couple of words about the IPART process. So NYLC has been working in youth development for 38 years. And we've really found that service learning and following this process with young people and having them use it to support taking action, excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of cold, supporting them taking action in their community, it's really a positive way and is a pathway for you to really learn about your community, learn what's already been done, partner with people who have similar interests and desires for change that you do, and build a real plan to take action. So, you know, as you've heard just from the examples that the YAC gave, it looks different in every community. So you may find your project is completely different than anything any other lead activist has done, but it's what your community needs, and it addresses a root cause of education inequity in your community. So you get to decide what that looks like, and hopefully you have adult support. We really believe strongly in youth-adult partnerships because we don't want you to start banging your head on a wall because the adults in your, you're not having adult support. And so just as the YAC is here to support you, so is NYLC. So if you feel like you're banging your head on a wall, we're here for you and want to support you in either being that adult support system or that organization support system, or helping you identify adults in your community that can help support as well. So you have the a great, hopefully strong foundation here of both youth and adults who want to see you be successful in the implementation of your Youth4Ed programs in your own schools. So that's all I'm going to say on that right now.
So for our next meeting, this might seem sort of soon, but you're going to get started almost immediately. So the first thing that we ask is that you find a teacher, community leader, or other adult that you really trust to become your adult mentor as a lead activist. So this means that they're there to sort of supervise your club if it's in school, or support you however you need it in this process. Again, youth-adult partnerships are essential, and really good ones are sort of hard to come by, but if you work on them, they get better. We also have a webinar on this that we will send you, and I highly recommend you check it out before you find an adult mentor, just to sort of understand what you want out of this, and who you think could be a good adult mentor for you specifically. So do you guys, the two lead activists, have an idea of who you might ask to be your adult mentor? Maybe someone at your school. You don't have to know specifically, but just verbalizing an idea helps it become more solid.
I know that there are a lot of teachers at my school that have like really strong opinions about the like education and equity issues there. So like teachers that I'm really close with that have like expressed that might be good mentors.
Definitely.
At my school, you know, Bella already goes to my school, so we kind of already have an adult mentor, which is her mom, who works as a teacher there. And so we've already like started our process. So yeah.
Perfect. So as soon as you find an adult mentor that you think you can work with, and that you know will kind of support you, we want you to email their name, email, and their position to youth4ed@nylc.org, just so we can be in contact with them. And then the other part of this is a little bit more daunting, but we're fully supporting you, and you have time to do this, and it'll be good. But we're asking you to start a Youth4Ed club or chapter at your school or a local community center. So what this means is basically getting your adult mentor to sign off, and then gathering some students who really care about education equity and just starting to talk about it. So this is the investigative part of it. And if we go to the next slide. As a group, there are activities on pages 26 through 31 of the Take Action Toolkit, which will basically take you through the investigative process, sort of figuring out why you care about this, how education inequity exists in your community, and past, I guess, attempts at education equity, what's happened, and sort of the state of your community outside of your own experience. So it's going to take some research, but you guys have time to do it. And there's some activities in the toolkit that will be really helpful. And if you want to do this with your burgeoning club, that would also be good, because you guys can talk together, sort of brainstorm, and from there you can figure out what the biggest problem is and what you want to tackle. And if you need help with anything, you can contact us. You have our emails, or you can always contact Amy or NYLC. We're here for you, and this is going to be really fun. You guys got this. Any questions? No? Okay.
Do you guys want to go ahead and maybe share something you're excited for?
I'm just really excited to get to talk to other students that I usually wouldn't talk about, that I know have like opinions on the matter that just don't really get to be shared a lot. So I just want to be able to talk to new people about it.
I'm most excited to talk to people about what I think is very important, education equity, because I don't know, I think it's just a really big issue that needs to be talked about more, and that at my school, I feel like we don't talk about it as often because we're a bigger school, a nicer school almost. So I'm just really excited to talk to more people about this and to get more people involved in their community.
I'm really excited to see what you guys do and to see how it works out, because I think if we can figure out what the biggest problems across the nation are, then we'll have some starting points to take on the whole thing. Any questions? Comments? Wow. So we did a perfect job. We're done. Okay.
Carmen, did you ever discover why you are chocolate ice cream?
I think I'm chocolate ice cream because it's so subtle, slightly bitter, but sweet, delicious, silky smooth, perfect. And it's good in a cone and a cup. Not all ice cream flavors are. Like vanilla is only good in a cone with chocolate sauce. And chocolate, it just works with everything. It's perfect. Oh, not to imply that I'm perfect. Very versatile.
You just did.
We'll just crop that out of the webinar recording. Okay, well, thank you guys for coming. This was so much fun. And I'm